Okay, so hey Paul Teodo, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for giving us your time today, and I'm really excited to speak with you.
Good morning. It's good to be here.
I finally get someone who's actually on the same time zone as me. So coming from Bali, Indonesia, amazing.
Yeah, just a straight shot south. I love coming to Perth. I've been there like 6 times, I think. 6 times, maybe seven. Yeah.
Wow. Well, you're making me miss Bali even more. So
It's so funny because I actually feel the same way. I love Perth. Every time we've gone, we've had like the most amazing time. The people in Perth are so friendly and welcoming, and we love it. We always talk about like if there was ever a second home, if we were ever gonna raise a family in Australia, like that's where we wanna move to. If they'd let us in, these Americans.
well, let's hope it all comes down in a few months. Then I'm hoping for that anyway.
Yeah, me too.
Mm. All right, Paul, I want to jump straight in because you have a very rich and amazing and wonderful history and future. And we'll talk all through that. So, give me a little bit of a first up and the audience a bit of a personal journey of what's led you to now, as well as your journey with yoga, which is also what we're here for, and music and all that sort of stuff. So, I know that's a big question,
Sure.
but
Yeah,
the floor is yours.
great. Well, I was originally born in Chicago, Illinois, um, and I grew up in a very idyllic Midwest family, and we had like the two kids and the dog and the nice house with lots of consistency. I had a really nice childhood. My brother and I were given pretty much. We weren't wealthy, but we weren't poor. We really just had a really nice upbringing. I went to good schools, had solid friends, and really um, yeah, had a nice childhood. And then I moved from Chicago after college into Los Angeles, and I worked. Well, I worked in real estate for a little bit after college, and I enjoyed it. But I got this yearning to just do something more meaningful with my life. My father used to run hospitals, so when your father runs hospitals and you see him making an impact on the world that's much more meaningful than just financial, it definitely gave me a calling of I need to like actually make a positive impact on the planet, and I didn't feel like I was doing that with real estate. So I've been a musician most of my life. I moved to Los Angeles and worked in real estate for like a month or two, but I was surrounded by all these people that were going after their dreams, and I was like, well, my dream is not to be a realtor, to be a real estate agent. So that didn't last very long, and I dove straight into a 2-year acting program and got really serious about it, and was playing a ton of music and just living the life of the mid 20s starving artist, and really enjoyed it for a while. Really enjoyed it. Um, I love everything about music and everything about acting, and the business side of it just destroyed me, though. Just really beat me down.
Yeah.
Being able to navigate that world was really challenging for somebody who had the excessive idealism that I had,
Mm,
really wanting my work to be meaningful,
yeah.
and being unwilling to do work that I found was not meaningful.
Yeah.
And when you live in Los Angeles, most of the work is not meaningful.
Yeah.
It's Coca-Cola commercials and take your shirt off and beer and cheesy television shows. And to someone like me who was really yearning to do work that was a little bit deeper,
Mm,
it was it was very misaligned. So after a couple of years of trying to fit the square peg into the round hole, I developed a lot of anxiety,
mhm.
and lost all of my money and was like really broke for like 3 years and really miserable. I think I went from somebody who was very comfortable in his skin to somebody who I said had no skin.
Wow.
Literally just a walking nerve.
Wow.
And yeah, so I found yoga and meditation during all of that. So I was practicing all this yoga, doing all this meditation, playing all this music. So I was like hyper tuned in, hypersensitive, which made for some really nice music, but didn't make for a human being that was capable of functioning very well in the real world. There was that disconnect, which I think is quite often with somebody who's with any person who's going through some sort of a spiritual transformation at the same time, maybe a dark night of the soul or whatnot. So after a few years of really practicing yoga and playing guitar and trying to fit into this acting industry that I loved the acting so much and I hated the business so much. It was such a, it was like these two opposing forces that were just going 200 miles and smashing into each other. And it just left me wrecked. So I recognized that to be able to deal with like waking up, driving, going to audition for like a beer commercial, then going to audition to be some like hot cop on like some like incredibly cheesy show or caught like police officer who has great abs. And it's like just these dumb roles that really just made me like hate myself. Like I was doing that for a few years and I just broke down. Like I literally just the wheels fell off the car and I surrendered. And I had to do yoga every day and I had to play guitar every day. It was the only thing that could keep me sane because it was just so inconsistent with my values, what I was doing. And I just had to stop. I got so bad that my fingertips went numb and I couldn't play guitar anymore. So it was the universe literally like taking away the only thing that I had left. And at that point, I completely surrendered and I got myself some well-needed therapy and healing and really committed to meditation and went into like a 12-step program for codependency and some other stuff and just completely surrendered. And at that moment, I was meditating and journaling and having this like rebirth. And I had a very clear spiritual experience in which I was told that I should teach yoga. And very, very, very certain about that. And a week later, I had no money. A week later, a teacher training came available. I qualified for the scholarship, was able to get half off on the teacher training. And then on top of that, like I booked a modeling job that paid for the training. So once I made the decision, this is what I was going to do, everything fell into place. You know, the job came, the scholarship came, and I did my teacher training and loved it and started teaching yoga pretty much immediately afterwards. And I was pretty lucky. I had a lot of contacts with a lot of really good yoga teachers in Los Angeles.
Amazing.
That helped me get opportunities. And I think I had a lot of success pretty quickly. Things were in flow. And I was at the same time I was working very hard, but it was like enthusiastic work, so it didn't feel like work. You know, as Eckhart Tolle says, like when your actions are infused with enthusiasm, it's literally saying like they're infused with God. So it's like my outer purpose and inner purpose were in alignment, and as a result, really cool things happened pretty quickly. And my classes were popular, and started playing guitar in my classes and sharing my music with people, and still had a lot of residual scarring from it wasn't just the acting, it was also some other stuff in my 20s, which I'm not going to go into too much detail. Let's put some family stuff that really had some wounds that needed to be healed with my family. And those it's a gradual process of really healing those, but I was healing them while I was in motion. So there's a meme that says, like, you don't have to be completely healed to help people. By helping people, you will heal completely. And that's been my experience.
That's incredible.
So so I taught yoga in Los Angeles for 5.5 years, and my wife and I, well, she was my girlfriend at the time, we both had retreats in Bali. And I remember saying to her, hey, after we have this retreat in Bali, we should just travel around Southeast Asia for a few months. And she said, like, we should just stay. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. She goes, you wouldn't. And I go, yes, I would. And then from that point on, it was like a game of chicken. Where, like, one of us, who was going to back down from this, like, oh, we're actually going to, like, sell everything and move to Indonesia. And neither of us backed down. And then we sold everything that we owned and moved to Bali without really having too much of a plan. I'd never even been here. Like, never had been here.
Really?
And never been here, and I moved here. And it was the scariest thing I've ever done. And it was the best decision I've ever made for so many different reasons. And here I am, living in this tropical paradise with, now I have 2 dogs and a baby. So I have lots of roots now, lots of responsibility, and lots of meaning in my life, like deep meaning, you know, a marriage, 2 dogs, and a baby.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. And I want to pull apart a few of those things that you've just spoken about. So can I start firstly with an incredible lead up to now, and moving to Bali without even being there? Wow. But
yeah,
there must have been some sort of pull from somewhere else for you, you know, in terms of, like, this is the place, and so many people get that. I'm not sure once you got there you felt that pull to stay and to be there. A lot of people speak about that infamous energy of Bali and how it sort of pulls and keeps you there. Is that something?
Yeah, I think, yes. My wife and I, we landed here, and then we were lucky enough to get hired at the Yoga Barn, which is the biggest yoga studio in all of Asia. Amazing place. It took us a while to get hired here. You had to be persistent, you know, which is, you know, the nice thing about being an actor for a while is I have a very high tolerance for rejection.
Yeah.
I can have 15, 20 people in a row tell me no, and it doesn't faze me that much, because in acting you have 30, 40, 50 no's in a row before you get a yes. So the quality of perseverance was something that was ingrained within me, and we had to persevere to get hired here and to get visas, and we had to, you know, struggle through quite a bit of uncertainty. My wife, it took her even longer to get hired, and, you know, she had to be patient and wait, and then things fell into place, and things really fell into place the last 1.5 years for both of us. And then the pandemic hit and wiped our entire slate clean.
Yeah.
Just wiped it out.
Yeah.
Overnight.
Wow. All right. I'll dive into that in a minute, because that's something I really want to get into. When you started meditating and journaling, I just want to touch on this, because it might be this development or this progression of where you've gotten to now in terms of how you practice meditation. I just wanted to touch on that first before I forget. What did a meditation practice look like for you when you were in LA and doing all these things, the transformative processes that you went through? What did that look like?
Yeah, so at first, when I started meditating just based off of YouTube videos. And I found like YouTube videos, a lot of times I'd really like psychedelic images, and I'd sit and I'd watch. And I began at that point in my life when I was extremely frustrated and angry because I was trying to have this career as an artist and being met with all this commercialism and all of this stuff. So I had so much fire going on inside of me that I would sit down to meditate, and I would go, actually a lot of times I would be able to go into like a pretty deep state of consciousness. And then by the end of the meditation, I would open my eyes, and 20 minutes later I would be soaked in sweat.
Whoa.
Like I had just gone for a run, like soaked.
Far out.
There was so much resistance inside of me and so much turmoil. Living this life that was so inconsistent with my values, while at the same time wanting so badly as a creative and as an artist to express myself, wanting to express it in ways that were not available to me in Los Angeles. One, because just getting an acting job is really hard, but two, the work was not, it wasn't like, Los Angeles it's very pop culture. And I was more of like a jazz guy, like I was more of an indie guy. So I look back and I was like, I just wasn't in the right environment.
Yeah.
And the residual effects of that was when I was sitting down meditating for my first couple months, I would literally just, when I was done, I'd be soaked in sweat.
That's incredible. But it's such an important point to make, because a lot of, and in my clinic too, it's the realization that emotions have a physical impact on us is so untold or unspoken of, because of the fact that, and I love bringing back disease, illness into emotional suppression areas where those are, full meaning. Louise Hay, for example, that's a very well-known way of looking at things. But for you, that even that release of stress, or the release of the hormones and the cortisol and the adrenals, you're almost cleansing or resisting at the same time. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. So now, in terms of yoga, and I know power yoga is a big important part of your practice. Explain to me a little bit about how your yoga practice progressed, and how that led into where you are now and practicing and teaching.
Yes, so in case you haven't already figured it out, I'm a pretty intense person. So in Los Angeles was a great environment for me with yoga, because the yoga classes are very physical. Los Angeles is a lot of times known as the fitness capital of the world. So there was a very strong but very intelligent fitness component to all the classes in Los Angeles. So the teachers would teach like strong, sweaty, but conscious and intelligent classes. And because they were intelligently sequenced and would involve things like breath work and kumbhaka and meditation and philosophy, I would walk into these classes as somebody who has always been very physical, very active, and I would be just destroyed, drenched in sweat, but I would also walk out of the experience stoned. And then I would go sit and play guitar, and I wouldn't even have to warm up. I would just be able to write music, and it would just flow from me. So I'd never experienced this like combination of extreme physical intensity with emotional softness and well-being, and then spaciousness, and then increasing creativity. It was incredible. And I loved it. I mean, I was hooked from the
Yeah.
beginning. Like a lot of people, I found yoga
Yeah.
through the fitness component of it. So when other teachers try and downgrade the importance of that, like, I think fitness is huge. Fitness is everything. It's the foundation.
Mm.
Not of all yoga, but having a healthy body is like the trunk of the tree or the roots of the tree, and then everything else you can build upon it.
Yeah.
So if you have somebody who loses 100 pounds, like my sister-in-law, she lost over 100 pounds. That's a spiritual transformation.
Mm.
If somebody loses that much, or somebody gets their body into that level of well-being, you're going to have a spiritual transformation, even if you're not even looking for it.
Mm. Yeah.
So that's what the practice did for me. And then on top of that, I was playing all this guitar and reading all these like beautiful works of literature through these acting classes that were very old school. And I mean, in terms of consciousness, it just, power yoga just blew me open. It was amazing. And then as I continued to practice the meditation, as happens to most people, meditation found me, breath work found me. I started eating healthier naturally. I stopped drinking as much. In my late 20s, I was still drinking like a frat boy sometimes. And then slowly but surely, all of that just kind of left me. I think, there's Paramahansa Yogananda, the yogi who was from India that came to Los Angeles. He had this lake shrine in Los Angeles, this beautiful, beautiful temple on the side of a hill it's so beautiful. And he is quoted in saying, like, somebody came to see him, some Hollywood guy, rich Hollywood guy, and said to him, if I start practicing yoga and meditation, does that mean that I have to stop smoking? And Yogananda was like, no. Does that mean I have to stop drinking? It's like, no. Does that mean I have to stop eating meat? And he's like, no. Does that mean I have to stop having lustful thoughts about women? He said, no, you don't have to stop any of that. He's like, but what I can't promise you is that if you continue to do this, the desire to do those things will not leave you. So just trusting that the yoga and the meditation will open this window within ourselves to be able to recognize, oh, I have all these unhealthy habits. And in that soft, quiet, intelligent place, the desire to do these things will leave us. And that's been my experience. Because I used to drink a lot. I used to smoke a lot of pot. I smoked for a while. All of that. And then the yoga, I never like really even set the intention, like, I'm going to stop doing these things. But now, I still enjoy some wine every now and then. I still enjoy like a beer, but the desire to get drunk is gone. Completely gone. I don't smoke pot anymore. The desire to smoke pot is gone. So it's the yoga works.
Absolutely. And unsettled, ungrounded, unsettled. I myself, I found when I would have been 18, I sort of fully found yoga, and I felt like I wanted to have a night in just practicing asanas in my room versus going out to a nightclub, because I was like, this is giving me so much more fulfillment. And then, like you say, a lot of that movement base of that the yoga practice, which is, like you say, there's so many parts to yoga, but the asana, the movement is the one thing that draws people in first, because they feel like there is a focus, or they can actually ground, or they can move through things, and they can actually shift those energy blocks. That's what I found anyway. And then moving forward, it's natural, because you just want more progression, and then the yoga just brings in more of those, good feelings, those good hormones, those good neurotransmitters, and then you start to really feel good within yourselves, and you're searching out all those things that are going to support that. So yeah,
Yeah.
I hear it a lot, and it's just one of those really amazing practices that encompass really everything that we should be focusing forward on and changing, so we can actually change people in this way, or people can change themselves, should I put it like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's incredible. So can you, for listeners, give a little bit of a breakdown of what power yoga is compared to what they may know other yogas as?
Sure. I was lucky enough to study at Brian Kest's studio, and also I worked there. Brian Kest was the inventor of power yoga. He's from actually from Hawaii originally, or actually from Michigan, then moved to Hawaii, and then from Hawaii came to Los Angeles. And he had this yoga studio, Power Yoga Santa Monica, and he founded it. And when he thought of the name Power Yoga, it wasn't actually just because he wanted you to sweat. It was because he wanted you to walk out of the room and the experience feeling empowered. So feeling confident, feeling alive, feeling vibrant. And that doesn't necessarily just mean sweating. It means taking child's pose on days that you need to. It means taking a break, being gentle, not competing or comparing yourself to other people. And at the same time, if you're looking for it, pushing yourself, going to your edge, going to exhaustion, because I think that's a large part of it too, is like, finding that balance between the two. So this studio was amazing. And the most amazing part of the studio was that Brian, it was a donation-based studio. So it's this huge room, and all the classes were free, or they were by donation. So he just had a box at the door, and his idea was like, basically just pay me whatever you want. Yoga should be free, and I'm just going to stay out of the way and teach. And by doing that, which is such a great lesson in abundance, by doing that, Brian Kest made more money than anyone by teaching for free.
Really?
Because he'd have 150 people in his class.
Wow.
And so we all started teaching at this studio, and it was this donation-based studio. You had to actually pay money to rent the room, and then you accepted donations. And it was the best lesson in abundance that I've ever been given, because instant feedback. First off, you had to bet on yourself. So you lose money. You lose money for 6 months to a year. Do you really want to teach yoga? Okay, teach for free. Like old school, You had to bet on yourself. A lot of teachers lost money. However, if you stuck with it, 2 or 3 years later, you'd be making 3 to 4 to 5 times what you could make anywhere else.
Wow.
And it was all teaching for free. So it's like, there's very few things that are more pure than like teaching a yoga class for free. And then after the class is done, opening up a box and having it just full of money. and be like, wow, this is like 4 times what I would make at some corporate studio.
Yeah.
So me, being this like non-conformist rebel, just absolutely loved it.
Loved it. You ate it up.
Stick my middle finger to the man, like that's basically been my motto my whole life. And so I love that place. And so yeah, that's where I started. And the thing about that studio is, because it was, I wouldn't call it cutthroat, but because it was like, you had to really bet on yourself. Most teachers didn't make it, and the ones that did, almost all of them went on to do like pretty amazing things in the world. And either they started their own studios, or they're traveling the world, or they started like video yoga companies or whatever. And it was a good platform and training ground to see what I could do. So having taught there and being successful, I was like, okay, I can move to Bali without a plan. And as long as I get hired somewhere, I have the perseverance I have the ability to handle rejection,
Mm.
and I know I'm good
Mm.
because I've spent thousands of hours doing this. Like,
Exactly.
I'm not like in an arrogant way. Like I've invested my time and energy into being good at something, so I was confident. Like, but real confidence, not like Instagram confidence, real confidence.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, so
Wow.
yeah, that was the power yoga myth. And unfortunately, that studio is now closed. And Brian Kesta, he moved up to Ojai to finish raising his kids and to kind of live a more quiet life. What happened with the studio is all of the senior teachers became so well known that they were gone half the year. Like, they were all like traveling rock stars, and the studio couldn't sustain itself because the well-known teachers were gone, and the newer teachers like me didn't have the recognition of the older teachers to help us build ourselves. And eventually and the rents in Los Angeles were ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it unfortunately didn't work out, but I got to experience a couple of years of it and really like building something. So I built something, it's a very like healthy masculine quality to build something meaningful.
Yeah.
And yeah, it taught me a lot. By the end of it, my classes were packed, but it took time. It took time.
Yeah, that's incredible. So from there, moving to Bali and then into the yoga barn, have you brought that, that power yoga straight into the yoga barn? And so give me a little bit of an idea of what that looks like now. And are you still running classes there at the moment in this, weird and wonderful period?
Yeah. So first off, yes, I got the yoga barn and I basically was able to take off running because the yoga barn has these big rooms. So I'm used to teaching in a big room, just like in Los Angeles. The rooms were big. They held like 80 to 100 people. Same thing here in Bali. So I felt very familiar with it. And the beautiful thing about the yoga barn, which is very similar to Brian Kest's donation-based studio, is you have a millionaire and you have a backpacker right next to each other, and they're both practicing yoga. So it's not this like, it's not like this. It's not like a too hippie environment where everybody's like a starving artist, and it's also not this like posh, like elitist. It's like this place is just this melting ground, and just a beautiful environment. So I started teaching there, and tourism was popping, and the yoga barn was this established environment, and I was an established teacher. I taught meditation. I had this guitar meditation, power yoga, yin yang yoga, hatha. I could teach all of it because I've been doing this for a while. And yeah, it's just beautiful. It's just an amazing experience. And was leading trainings and was leading retreats all over the world, and really just living my living my best life.
Yeah.
Hashtag living my best life with my wife. And then Corona was the sledgehammer that just destroyed all of that. Just wiped it out.
Wow.
Yeah.
So tell me a bit about that now. What does it look like now for you? Obviously, for a lot of people, Corona has been a reset, I would say. If that's a thing. I felt for a lot of people it's been horrible, but also at the same time ungrounding to then reset a new boundary or a new level for them, or that realization of like, what was I doing? For a lot of people, and what are my true values really? For you, what does that look like now? Where are you headed at the moment? And I was going to leave this until last, but we'll do this now and just have a chat through. What are you looking for now? What's this all look like?
Well, I think I'm the only person that I know that Corona has revealed to me that I was doing exactly what I wanted to do with my life.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But it's not awesome because it's extremely uncomfortable.
Well, yeah, you have to sit with that now. Yeah, absolutely.
Like I compare it to like being a professional athlete that like made it to the NBA
Yeah.
and then they're like blew out their knee.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, maybe you'd like to go work at a bank. And I'm like,
Nope.
no. maybe maybe you want to work online. And I work online just like all the other wellness professionals, and it's been great, and it's been really meaningful to me and meaningful to a lot of other people all over the world, but it's not my preferred method. I'm an extrovert. I like to work with people. I'm an artist. I'm a performer. Like all of these things require my wife and I and my friend Byron, who works with me, to gather large groups of people together to travel internationally, which is like the hardest thing in the world to do right now. Actually, it's not, you can't even do it.
Yeah.
So for me, it's been extremely uncomfortable. And I've had to pause and reflect, and it's been my reflections have basically led me to say, oh, like, what do I want? I wanted exactly what I had. And I'm the only person that I know that's like, that really was like, well, I was doing all these things for the wrong reasons, or this is how I'm going to shift and this and that. And for me, it's like, yeah, I had exactly what I wanted, and I built it the way that I want, and I was in my own dharma and my own integrity, and so it's been gratifying because there's a deeper level of resolve in terms of, okay, when international travel opens up and large groups of people can gather together again, I'm just going to go straight back into doing what I was doing with strategic ways in which I can challenge myself with more trainings and build certain things online. But yeah, like I said, I'm an intense person, and the lack of intensity has been very uncomfortable for me. And you can be intense and still be calm.
Absolutely.
So it's not like it's not like in a city like Los Angeles or Sydney or even Perth, like everybody is going too fast. In Bali, everybody's going too slow. So like there is this desire for me to, like I often tell people, like I spent the last 7 years like building a Ferrari, and now the Ferrari is stuck in a 1 year long traffic jam, and it's going 10 miles an hour. And I don't know if you've ever been in a car like that, but it's actually uncomfortable to drive a car like that slowly. And that's basically my life right now.
Great analogy.
Yeah.
Backing up a little bit, I think this online environment, and I would say I'm a little bit similar to you, where I like the intensity. I like to be in front of, I'm a lecturer, I like teaching, I like, and as soon as COVID happened, lecturing was literally taken away from me because of the fact that everything went online. And I miss it so much. It's, the feedback you get from people in front of you, even the students, the value they give me, teaching me, as I've gone through my journey, I get the most teachings from my clients, my students. So to go online and to even for this, I would much prefer if we were face to face. It's just so much richer. But the way the world's gone now, obviously, it's all online. So it definitely leaves a gap. And it's not the same. It's definitely not the same. A lot of people are thriving in that environment. Obviously, that suits them. But for those who love that connection, who feed off that energy, it's not the same, and it saddens me a little bit to hope that we do get back to that. But I feel somehow, we are going to be a digital world, majoritively, which is, says something in itself. So, I completely understand that, and that intensity for their energy to share. I think you've got some, amazing gifts to give people, and that needs to be done in an environment where you're all together. So from that, I wanted to talk a little bit about your music, because that also fascinates me, and the music with the yoga. How did you bring that together? And I know you live music within yoga classes, and how have you found over the years that's influenced the practice, the people? Yeah.
Yeah, I started playing music at like 13, 14 years old, playing guitar. Started with Dave Matthews and, Metallica, the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, all that stuff, and continued to play throughout college. And I used to actually play at bars with my friend in college, and he was my one of my best friends. And at the age of 21, he died in a motorcycle accident. And when he died in the motorcycle accident, I gave his eulogy, and I was one of the people that gave his eulogies, and I played guitar at his funeral, and then I stopped playing guitar for 10 years in front of people. Wow. Because I just couldn't do it. I just didn't want to. I felt like I was betraying him, and just had a lot of fear around playing in front of people. And so then, as I started practicing yoga and meditation, I found these open tunings, which allowed me to write different types of music and create melodies while there were drones underneath, which gave it a really cool way in which you're almost like telling a story through instrumental guitar, taking people on a journey. And I started writing all these pieces, and at the same time started practicing yoga, and then started teaching yoga. And I remember I was working with a mentor, and we were moving through like the basic tasks and steps. And he basically said, like, I'm not moving you on to this next step until you play guitar in front of your students, in front of other people, because like that's a huge block for you. And I didn't want to do it, but I knew that he was right, and I knew that it was something that I needed to do. And I was terrified of playing my own music in front of people. And I remember the day that I decided I was going to do it, I meditated and journaled about it, and called my mentor, talked to him about it, and was like, I was ready. I was going to play my guitar during Shavasana. And I got to class I was subbing for my friend who's kind of like a famous yoga teacher at the time. And so the class was packed, and I knew it was going to be packed, and it was what I wanted. And so I taught a class. It was a pretty good class, and sat down at the end of class. Everybody was quiet, in quiet meditative state. And I started playing my guitar, and I played terribly.
Oh no.
Just sucked. I sucked.
Oh no.
And then I got done, put the guitar away, finished the class. Some people walked out, and got in the car, called my sponsor, my mentor, and told him what happened. And he's like, good. He's like, the only thing that matters is that you did it.
Yeah.
And I also recognized that I did all these spiritual things. I was like, I'm gonna meditate, I'm gonna journal, I'm gonna be grateful, I'm gonna call I'm gonna pray about it, I'm gonna call my mentor, make sure that I'm in this state. I forgot to play the freaking guitar. I forgot to actually practice
You do it, yeah.
and warm up because I was doing all of these esoteric things, but I forgot to do like the most obvious thing.
Right.
To actually just play the guitar.
Yeah.
So next time I played well. But it was important that it was important to fall on my face. And I think it's important for everybody to fall flat on their face.
Absolutely.
All the time. And yeah. It's that, those qualities of perseverance and being able to handle rejection. If you can't do that, you're never going to be able to succeed at anything. Anything like special.
Oh, I totally agree. So important.
Yeah.
And such an important message there. Absolutely. You always know the extreme heightened, jump that you make when you fall very quickly.
Yeah.
And how quickly you learn from that, or you change quite quickly after that. So wow. And
yeah,
so from that
and then I go ahead, sorry.
So from that point, that was obviously broke the ice for you a little bit, and then went into doing that more often, obviously into the classes, and that became a signature of yours.
Yep, it became the signature, and more people started saying like, "Hey, I could listen to you do this for an hour." And I was like, "Well, I guess I can try turning it into a meditation, like a guided guitar meditation." And so I did that, and I started playing like a guided guitar meditation. And at this point, I was already starting to have a decent amount of success with the actual yoga. So there was some confidence really building inside of me. So I started doing these guitar meditations, and I would have like one person, two people, three, then I'd get 7, and then it would go back to like 2. But I knew that something was coming. And then I got hired at this meditation studio that had really, really good energy and also very good marketing. It was a well-run business. And she hired me to do these guitar meditations. And this is another thing I think you learn about abundance is environment is really important for abundance. So my guitar meditation was 2 people. They put me into this other environment, and all of a sudden there were 60, and it took time to build, but I believed in it, and I knew that a lot of people were getting something out of it, and the compliments that I was getting from people were very sincere and very meaningful to me. So it gave me a lot of resolve that this is what I was supposed to be putting out into the world.
Yeah.
And then like it got to the point where these guitar meditations I do were always sold out, and I didn't even have to market them. Like they just sell out, and it was just a beautiful feeling. And now I took them all over the world, and did a bunch of them, a couple of them in Perth actually at Frio, Eshed, Fremantle Yoga Center. Yeah.
Hey, I used to I had my practice there for a little while, just for a year.
Yeah. Kate's a good friend of mine. She's wonderful.
Yeah, gorgeous.
Yeah. So that's kind of how that happened, and I released 2 albums, and the people still seem to really love the music. It's been really hard for me not to be able to play in front of people. I just like I can mic my guitar and play in front of people in a laptop like we're doing right now, but I feel it's like an uneven energy exchange. I actually feel depleted. I feel sad. So I don't really do it right now.
Yeah.
And even like, yeah, I think other people, maybe they get more out of it, other musicians that I know, but for me, like, I feel like if I were to do it, I'd just be doing it for you and not doing it for myself.
Yeah.
And, you know?
Absolutely. I feel much the same about speaking to an audience
Yeah.
over here, you know, and that for me is draining. I guess because you felt it, that, you know, when you're in an audience, you know what it feels like. So it's just
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah.
Paul, I wanted just to bring you back into you made a comment about the environment for abundance. Could you break that down for
Yeah.
me a little bit? Do you mean energetic? Do you mean supportive environment? So what do you mean by that?
Well, I think it can go so many different ways, and I think in some ways it's very unexplainable. So think about, so here's a story about like Jimi Hendrix.
Mm-hmm.
Jimi Hendrix was in New York City for years. He would play guitar in the street. He was broke. He was, you know, starving and playing incredible music that nobody wanted to listen to, and he was not making any money. And then some guy, I think this guy from the Byrds, happened to hear Jimi Hendrix and was like, I'm going to take you to London to record at this place, and you're going to meet Eric Clapton. And Hendrix was so exhausted and burnt out. He was like, I don't even want to go. Fuck this. Like, I don't even, like, what's the point? And he's like, just trust me. He's like, I think they would really enjoy what you're hearing.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, if you read the story, Jimi Hendrix landed in London and 7 days later was like famous. So you take, I mean, the music that he was playing in New York is the same music. It's not like he went through some like massive spiritual transformation. Like, he just took the same music that wasn't working in one environment and put it into a different environment and flourished immediately. So I think that especially with creativity, there's something to be said for you need to find the right environment for your authentic expression, which Hendrix is able to do. And for me, I think, like I said, environment, like I look back at Los Angeles and me as an actor and as a musician, and I was like, there's no way I would have flourished in Los Angeles. It wasn't the right environment. It wasn't the right soil for that type of plant. And there's no amount of spiritual work that I could have done. There's no amount of like ayahuasca ceremony or whatever. It wouldn't have worked. For me to flourish, I would have had to leave that environment and plant seeds in a different type of soil.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of times, I think there's a message that a lot of people miss about abundance. It's like, maybe you're doing everything right and you just need to move the seed to a different plot of soil.
Yeah. I completely agree, and I've seen it in other people, and I've felt it, you know, even with myself. You feel like a block. There's a blockage where you currently are, and you need to shift to actually, you know, and spread your wings. put it that way. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think it was just a really important point I wanted to bring to attention, because I think we don't consider that enough, the environment that you're actually creating or doing your work, or, you know, feeling like you're wanting to be fulfilling or in the flow, and then moving forward from that. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think it also goes sometimes with financial abundance too, because even though at the end of my time in Los Angeles, I was really flourishing as a yoga teacher, Los Angeles was never a place where I flourished financially. I flourished in Chicago and I was in real estate, and I flourished in Bali ever since I moved here. But in Los Angeles, there was just, and it's a very expensive city. So there's also like very real world like obstacles to flourishing, because it's super expensive. But I think again, it was maybe one of those things where like if you look at what I was doing, like I was, financial abundance. I was being responsible. I was meditating. I was setting intentions, setting goals, and I was like just getting ahead just a little bit.
Mm.
But never quite like flourishing. And the second I left Los Angeles, I went back to like to I wouldn't say like, not like I'm not a millionaire or anything, but like my wife and I are comfortable,
Mm.
and we're comfortable even now with this whole pandemic and me being underemployed, my wife being we're not unemployed, we're underemployed.
Yeah.
We're still financially comfortable. So I think that part of that was also environment. Like every time I go to Perth, everything falls into place for my wife and I. It's amazing. Like that's part of the reason why I love coming to Australia and going, especially to Perth though. Like the right people show up. We always get invited to like a cool party. Somebody will let us like borrow their car. Sometimes you get like a free place to stay. And like it's just incredible. So like that's part of I love Perth. Like every time I've gone, it's just been a home run. Like it's just great. My yoga classes and meditation classes in Perth are always packed. I'm like, where are these wonderful human beings coming from? Like, thank you God for Perth.
Yeah, well, you're very well known here. When I started to put the word out, your name came up multiple times. So yeah, it's incredible.
Well, I love Perth. I love it. I love that area. The people have been so nice to my wife and I, and it seems just like it's just such a beautiful little small town, big town at the same time. And it's great.
Yeah. It's fast enough for you, but not too draining, that's how I see it. Because you've got lots of rest down the beach and the bush, so it's a big nice balance. Well, I'm here as well now, so if you ever need anything to fall into place, I can always give you a hand as well. So
yeah, I love it.
So in terms of your podcast, I want to talk onto that now. Teacher evolution. So with yoga teacher evolution, tell me how you got into that and how is that going, and offering obviously a service to those yoga teachers and talking through aspects of that. Sounds fascinating.
Yeah. I started it with my friend Michael Henry. He's a physiotherapist, and we basically created the podcast to help yoga teachers who feel like they weren't given adequate training to be able to go out into the real world and be successful and to feel confident. After being here in Bali for several years, I just really recognized how lucky I was to be trained in Los Angeles with the people that I was trained by. They were really good. And then just meeting so many men and women that would graduate their teacher training and be like, I had a beautiful experience, but I still don't know what the hell I'm doing. Like, well, I guess I just need to take another training. And that to me, that really bothers me, because if I'm listening and marketing something as a yoga teacher training, then it's my job to be able to get you qualified to be able to go out into the real world and get a job. It's not just about like love and light and manifestations and and all of those things are beautiful and we offer them. But like at the end of the day, like you need to be proficient enough to walk into a yoga studio and get hired. Otherwise, I haven't done my job. And we are good at that. Like my company, my teacher training, like our students go out into the real world and teach, and they're confident. So we created this podcast basically to fill in the gaps with a lot of things that aren't being talked about, and the things that are being left out in a lot of teacher trainings, in order to give students the confidence that they need to have their dream, what they invested in. So and it's also like we also interview people. Our podcast was originally called the Rat Race Rebellion, so we were also interviewing a lot of people who basically left a job that they hated to pursue a job that they love.
Yeah.
So that there's still that element of it too. So I interview people that are now living a life that they're really passionate about. And that's fun too, because I don't just want to talk about yoga, and neither does mine. Like, I love yoga and I love meditation, but there's lots of other things that we're interested in as well, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That sounds fascinating. Yeah, so there's a lot of revolution into people changing up careers, and the realization that the 9 to 5 is not, you know, not ideal for us or our bodies or our brains or our creativity. So yeah, I find that fascinating too. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up, I just wanted to run through with you what's the future look like for Paul at this stage. I see you do have a retreat, hopefully planned. Well, I see a 2021
Yeah.
somewhere. So talk me through what you've got coming up, what you've got planned. I know Corona can throw in curveballs, but we'll leave that aside for a minute.
Yeah. So I have a lot. I'm doing a lot. I have an online mentorship available for anybody who has done a teacher training that either they don't feel confident or they were confident and then their studio closed for a year and now they're just getting back into it and they were feeling rusty. So
Yeah.
that's called Going Pro, and it starts on May 2nd. It's virtual, anyone in the world.
Amazing.
I have a teacher training in July that's also virtual, yin yang yoga teacher training. So anybody who wants to learn how to teach yin yoga, myofascial release, and also myofascial elasticity. And then I have another training in September, hopefully in Bali at the Yoga Barn. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah, yeah.
And then amazing, hopefully we have 2 retreats planned, one in Santorini in Greece. And I don't know if you've ever been to Santorini, but it's freaking awesome. You have been there?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh.
It's like one of those, Santorini is one of those like touristy places that actually lives up to the hype. Like I went there and I was like, yeah, this is touristy and I still love it. It's just so beautiful.
Yeah.
And the food is so good. And yeah, so we have a retreat in Greece at the end of September. And then we have a retreat in the south of France right after that. So we have these 2 retreats that we've had to postpone a few times.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we have some spots available because they were both sold out. But then because of like having to shift with Corona and everything, like, so we have spots available basically for everything right now. Nothing is sold out right now, but the trainings, the in-person stuff is almost sold out. So it's nice to see that there's still this demand. People are itching to travel.
Absolutely. They just like can't wait to see humans again.
Especially you Aussies. It's like it's ingrained in your DNA to travel. It's got to be so hard. Like
I feel like I'm locked with a ball and a chain at the moment.
Yeah.
I was meant to go traveling last year, and then like at the time that COVID hit, I was like, no, you can't do this to me. For everyone, it was the same. Oh, that's so exciting, Paul. I'm so excited that you're going to get to do these live ones, and I think it will happen. You know, it's been long enough that we've had to not be traveling and not moving around, so I'm very positive for those things to be happening. And Santorini, that's south of France as well. Like, come on, they're both amazing.
I know.
Oh, that's incredible. So, any parting words in terms of, you know, last thoughts? What really makes you tick every day? Anything that, you know, I know it's been a really tough time for you and so many other people in the last year and a half or year or so. Tell me, you know, what do you do every day that you have to do to get through the day?
For me right now, meditation and exercise, whether it's practicing yoga or going for a run or going to the gym, like those 2 things are super important. And also like spending time to talk to other men in my life that are supportive and helping me, that can help me just stay happy and sane. Yeah. And also spending every day, spending a few quality hours with my wife and my son, because I have a little baby. So I mean, that's actually the foundation of everything. Is every day if I get a few hours just to play with my son, it changes everything.
Oh, it does. And that's what I was going to get into, and I didn't actually ask you, and that's brought me back to that. Becoming a father, how did that change your perception, if in any way? It may not have, but did it change you, and what were those major changes that you noticed?
Yeah, it just completely cracked and smashed my heart open in ways that I never could have imagined. It was so beautiful. And watching my wife give birth was the bravest thing I've ever seen a human being do. And then watching, I mean, I do a lot of work, but the mother always does more work the first year. Like it's just, it's just more responsibility for her.
Yeah.
So just seeing the sacrifice and she's a superhuman person, and it just gave me a newfound respect for all women, and particularly all women that have given birth to children and raised children, and the real importance of the mother. And then it's also been very challenging for me as the father who wants to go out and provide for his family, and to to go to work. Like I want to go to work and come home not exhausted but tired after a meaningful day of doing something that I love. So it has definitely like pushed that very instinctual urge that I have to like go out and hunt the buffalo. You know what I mean? Like that's I have that very much inside of me. I don't want to be a stay-at-home dad. As much as I want to spend several hours a day of quality time with my son, like I also like I want to work. So it's really pushing up against that healthy masculine instinct.
Yeah.
And so my choices are basically to not work, or work but not work as much. I am working, and Yoga Barn's open, but I'm not working as much as I'd like to.
Yeah.
Or I could do more online work, which, not only am I a little burnt out on online yoga, but a lot of other people are burnt out too. So a lot of these trainings, they aren't filling up quite as fast as they were a year ago, because people are like, I'm over it. So again, it's just learning to persevere and learning to be patient, and also like acknowledging like the inner frustrations that I'm going through as a father, and wanting to to get back to building my dream, put my dream back together.
Yeah. And that makes you happy, and that makes you a better father, a better husband, better provider, in a sense that you're just going to be 100% you.
Exactly. Yeah. My own father, he really set a great example of like he worked hard, but when he came home, he was super present with us, and his work helped. He used to run hospitals, so his work helped lots of people.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that it was like his passion and his dream. It wasn't quite to the level as I've been lucky enough to have, but it was definitely meaningful work to him. So I got to see a man wake up every day and go build something meaningful.
Yeah.
And that to me is one of the best ways you can set an example for your children in a healthy, fatherly, or masculine, whatever you want to call it, like that type of way.
Yeah. In your truth, your passion.
I don't want to. Yeah, I'm not the kind of guy. In no offense to, I'm not the kind of guy who wants to like work 3 hours a day. Like that's not me. I want to work.
Yeah.
Like I want to work and build things and try to reach my highest potential so that my son can see it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is nothing, I think that in itself is just building a life that you love, and creating an example of what you can have full potential as a human, that's living a life that you're really proud of.
Yeah.
Well, that's incredible. Well, thank you for that insight, Paul. And I think a lot of people would agree that, being a father, it really changes you. And in just those exact ways that you have said, I think they're really important to be said. Yeah. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. So thank you so much. I had such a good time, and just listening to your story has been so enriching. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. It's been a super pleasure. And I look forward to someday meeting you down in Perth, my favorite town in Australia. You can meet the whole family.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a promise. So Paul, before we go, tell everyone where they can find you. So your links and all those sorts of things.
Yep. My Instagram is at Teodo, Teodo Yoga Guitar, Instagram. And then the teacher trainings are at elementsofpoweryoga.com. And everything else, and just go to my Instagram. There's links to everything on my Instagram. The mentorship, the trainings, the retreats in Greece and France, they're all there.
Perfect. Amazing. Thank you so much. And again, I appreciate your time today and spending it with me. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
See ya.